G'day guys, how you going? I'm reaching out to the community because I'm having some issues with my Eachine Racer 250. Ever since I decided to upgrade the firmware on the STM303 board, which is an F3 board, which I've upgraded from Eachine into the quad, it was working perfectly fine with the Clean Flight firmware that was on the actual chip when I actually bought the chip, the flight controller, and put it in. But since I decided to upgrade the firmware, I haven't been able to actually get the PIDs tuned so it's stable in flight in acro, horizon and angle mode. I've found that acro mode has been a lot better than flying in horizon and angle mode in terms of flight stability, but on occasion it will actually tilt and roll to the left, and on about a quarter throttle, sometimes after I've given a bit of throttle, it will actually roll to the left and drop. And I'm not sure whether that's to do with the ESCs. At this stage I really don't know, but I'll show you the quad and I'll go into the firmware and we can have a look at it. So that's the quad there. As you can see inside, I've upgraded the flight controller. It was working perfectly, like I said, until I decided to upgrade it to the latest firmware, and then I went back and put in the old firmware, which is the Clean Flight version 1.12. We'll just go and have a look at that now. I'll connect up. Okay, and we can go to CLI version. And you can see there it's got the Clean Flight SP Racing F3 1.12. I went back and put that on, but still in flight in angle mode and horizon mode, it oscillates and it's not very stable, and it's quite a quick, not overly quick oscillation, but there's some oscillation there, and it doesn't fly stable at all. As well as in acro mode, it's also not oscillating as much, but just doesn't fly stable. I'll show you the PIDs I've got in there now and the rates. So there's my rates, there's my PIDs that I'm running, and we'll go into configuration, and I've got my minimum throttle set at 1100, max at 2000, minimum command at 1000. And we'll go down here to flight controller loop time. I've set it 4000 and 250. I've also set this at 2000, which increases the cycles. So if I go down, let's go to about 2000, and you can see cycles per second hertz goes to 500. I've also tried it there, doesn't really help either. So what's happening is in angle mode it'll flutter like that, and then on a quarter throttle, after I punched out a bit, it'll come down and it might just roll to the left and fall that way. Leading with that particular arm, it'll drop that way. Same in acro mode, it'll fly relatively stable, it'll come across, it'll come back, and then I might punch out, come back down, it'll hold for a while, I'll get in about quarter throttle and it might just flip and go over like that. And it's done that with version 1.12, 1.13 and 1.14, and I just don't know what to do. And I've tried tuning again all the PIDs. I've brought them right down starting with P, so I've worked with proportional, and I've dropped everything, started with proportional, raised them up. Integral, I've kept it around the 20. and derivative, I dropped that right down to 10 when I started tuning, and then started to raise them. Again, didn't really help with angle mode and horizon. Note that the levels, I've dropped them down to 17% input for PIDs. Again, it does help when I drop it off to about 10%, but the response to inputs from the transmitter isn't strong at all, and it's pretty much unflyable in angle and horizon mode. So guys, I'm really at a loss now. From what I think's happening is that it could be one of the ESCs that's not functioning properly, and it could be this one over here, or maybe it's one of the motors. Maybe it's the motor that's not liking it, or it just could be the fact that the new firmware isn't actually liking the flight controller, which I really don't understand why, because it was original Clean Flight software that came on the board when I bought it from Banggood. It's the Eachine STM303 board, F3, and it was working fine, like I said, up until I decided to flash the firmware to 1.14 Clean Flight, which is the latest release. And yeah, so I'm pretty much at a loss at this point in time. So if anyone's got any advice, any help, maybe it's just really bad hardware on board. Maybe the ESCs, I'll point out here, these are Simon K 12 amp ESCs, which came stock with the Eachine Racer. Maybe it's just one of these that are faulty and that are playing up. I've checked all the connections, can't work it out. They all seem to be okay from a visual perspective. And I've been running all my tests with full functioning lipos that are fully charged, and I've got a battery tester on there, so it's not the battery. I know that for a fact. It does fly, but it doesn't fly stable, and I've tried tuning it with the PIDs. Unflyable pretty much in angle mode and horizon, and when you're in acro mode, it's okay, but I can't really trust it because it's just, it will fall out of the sky, particularly if I do a roll. Like I said, when I'm quarter throttle, sometimes I'll give it a bit of a punch out, come back down to quarter throttle, and it'll roll over that way, like it just did, and drop. Any advice, please let me know. Please make some comments. If you can help me out, that'd be great. Otherwise, mate, I'm just going to have to throw this one out and start fresh. I don't really want to do that because, it's a great quad to fly. I enjoy flying it. I've got a new build which is about to happen, which is going to be an FMR flight controller, F3, with BL Heli ESCs, Emax motors. So if I can keep this one and fly this one as a backup, that'd be great. Any advice, please let me know. Guys, thanks very much for your help. I really appreciate it. Bye. I just thought I'd mention as well, guys, that I've also calibrated all the ESCs. So I raised them to 2000, plugged the battery in, dropped it to 1000, and removed the batteries, so they were all calibrated, tested them all. They all turn on at, or the motor starts spinning at 1055. Like I said before, minimum throttle I'd set to 1100, so there shouldn't be an issue there with the ESC calibration. Again, thanks guys, look forward to getting some help from you. See ya.